You're not muted now.
No, I think there's some.
I'm eating lunch, so I'm trying to stay out of camera.
Speaking was and my.
Fine, Caitlin, how are you? Great, thanks.
Joni.
Linda, pink. It's good.
Yes, that's the color of my laptop.
Hey, it's good to see you, Linda.
I just finished Jazzercise on demand, so I'm a mess, but I got through in time to watch.
Good. We still have some people joining us.
Pretty fun to see our Brady Bunch squares getting smaller and smaller as people join.
Yes.
I don't know how you'd see people if it was 100.
So you guys, a friend of mine just joined, Marge Wesley, and she's my role model to you that there's always time to try and recruit and invite somebody to a meeting. So wave, Marge.
Hi.
Welcome. Hi. Anita, did you get yours to work?
I did, thank you.
Okay.
Oh, good.
Checking.
I see a lot of people here. Now, Richard Knoll's name is there, but not his face.
That's because I turned off my face.
I do too.
That was an improvement.
I was touching my face too often, and so I didn't want anybody else to see that.
Well, you can put it back on and we won't tell.
All right.
I'm here, but not my face.
Yeah, I'm back.
There you go.
Okay, we still have a few more people joining.
Yep, we're at 32 plus.
Yes.
What did we have last week, Joni? We had,
Close to 45, I think.
yeah, I was thinking.
Murray.
Yeah, because we had some people as two people together, so it came up to about 40 to 45, which is good.
Okay.
Where's the food?
See some people eating.
I think this would be a good time to institute drinking at Rotary.
I got my coffee. Does that count?
I have my
No,
sparkling
that's not
water.
exactly what I meant.
So with that, welcome everybody. It's good to see your faces and your sense of humor, and it's good to see some people we haven't seen in a long time. Linda and Jim, and if there's a couple others that haven't been to a meeting for a while and I'm not seeing you on the screen, just let me see it. Let's see. Grant, Chris. Okay. It's great to see everybody. Shall we start with the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which is nation under God, indivisible, liberty
For all.
all together, united as one. Doesn't get any better than that. Okay. First of all, I would like to invite you to put your devices on mute, but I think Marie has beat you to it.
Yeah, Joni, I'm going to put everybody on mute and then I'll turn yours on. Just a second.
Okay. voice is just great. No talk back from any of you. We need to do this more often. Okay, so I introduced you to my friend Marge Welpley. I was hoping that my neighbor Don Creedy and his daughter would also be joining us, but I haven't seen them so far. So with that, I'll turn the program over to Marie to introduce our guest, our speaker.
Okay. So I am really pleased to be able to introduce our speaker, Steve Wolgast. And so Steve holds the Knight Foundation Chair in Audience Engagement for News at KU, their journalism school. He started teaching there in August after 10 years of K-State. Before that, he spent 19 years in daily journalism, starting at the Capital Journal and finishing at the New York Times. So I'm going to turn it over to Steve.
All right. Can you all hear me? You can nod, thumbs up. All right. Well, thank you for asking me to join you today. I miss having the lunch too, and like Dick, already thinking about having a drink this afternoon. Everything is just so different now. I had class this morning this exact same way. I'm just with the earplugs in and watching students on computers. I'll tell you, students is a 9:30 class, which for college students, most of whom are home right now, almost all of them, in fact, this morning, every single one of them was just the name, or one person has a picture of a meadow. So I couldn't even see their faces. They're just, I hope that they're awake watching me. So thanks for joining on Zoom. I know it's a weird way to try to get anything done, but I guess we're all getting used to it one way or another. Well, today I was asked to talk about the media in this time that we're trying to all cope with right now, and the challenges the media is facing, and some possibilities that are out there for it as well. So I was thinking about this, and of course, probably like you, bombarded with emails, and each of which has a link to other sites, and all those sites have more links to more sites, and there's just no way we can keep track of all that. And it reminds me of something someone said about 10 years ago or so about the media and the internet, and this was that if the internet had been invented first, and then newspapers had been invented second, the newspapers would probably be really popular right now, because the internet is this fountain or fire hose of information, really. There's just so much all the time, and it's always updated on some site somewhere. And with all this info, it's hard to keep track of what's really going on and what's important, because it's so easy to get distracted. Where the idea of a newspaper was, and still is, or the evening news, or a well-organized website, at least a news website, is to have editors or producers, people who are thinking about all the content, all the information that's coming out, and assembling it in a way that they believe will make a lot of sense to their audience, whether that's the 30 minutes of a newscast, or the front page of a newspaper, or the home page of a website. What do people need to know most right now? And how can we get those questions answered using reporters who have been trained in getting information, vetting information, using reliable sources, and even when they talk to a reliable source, to check that information with another source to see if it's information that the journalist is comfortable with and the journalist is comfortable sharing to an audience. So, right now, what are the things we're interested in? What do the numbers show nationally, internationally, in Kansas? And which numbers are we looking at? Just the number of people infected, the number of people who've been tested, the number of people who are dying, who have died from COVID. What is the science showing? What are we hearing from Dr. Fauci? What are we hearing from Dr. Lee from the state? What are their models predicting for the spread of the disease, for what's the mortality of it, and how is it affecting different ages, and how easily is it transmitted? And now is it transmitted by bigger drops from your sneezes or smaller drops? We just don't know these answers yet. What about emergency rooms? I just saw Stormont Vale is going to have salary cuts now for most of its staff. And how's that going to affect morale among the people who are there to try to save us when we need help, whether it's for this or any random thing we end up seeing a doctor for. What are the government offices saying, from City Hall to the State House and beyond? We get this kind of information from the media. We're looking for it from the media. And that's the way to find it in one particular place. But even that idea is kind of odd right now. There isn't one media only. And there's certainly not one set of reporters and editors who are collecting this information, writing it up in a way to communicate to a broad audience, and then sending it to KSNT and WIBW and the Capital Journal and the Lincoln Journal Star and the Times of London and every other news organization. They all have different journalists. They've got different editors and producers. They've all got different people trying to answer, and these days, answer some of the same questions. So they're looking at these differently. They're asking different questions because they want to report to their own audiences. But one of the challenges in even answering this question about the media is, what does media mean? In some uses, we talk about the media and we are referring to movies, whether we go to the movie theater or nowadays we watch it on Netflix on the TV. Media can refer to the popular music we hear on the radio, or it's video games that kids play, TV shows. All of those things are, in a big sense, media as well. But in this conversation, we use media to refer to what we used to call the press, the journalists who are collecting information and sharing news stories and investigative reporting, along with human interest features. Just when I popped up today was the Corona cut, and that's people getting their haircuts at home and they put it on Zoom or something. So you can watch people getting the homemade haircuts, because we're all going to start looking pretty shaggy in a few weeks here. But the media, the press, that is, the opinion columns too, people sharing their ideas about what's happening. And that, of course, expands to include rhetoric of people who are trying to push certain political ideas or scientific ideas that may not have the foundation of a bunch of scientists or a broad group of politicians. But together, it's how we collect information and share it. And ideally, the media or the press is getting at the facts. That's the kind of thing we're all really looking for right now. And one of my class, I think I was zooming in with the staff of the Kansan, the student newspaper at KU, and one of them was commenting or saying that they're getting some negative comments on their website because all the reporting is coronavirus and how terrible it is, and you really should look for something more positive. Well, I mean, there are articles on its website that are not about the coronavirus, but what people want to know are the facts, and it's the job of journalism is to hold up that mirror and say, here's what's happening now to you and to us and to all of us. And if we're not happy with what's happening, then that's a cue for us to go out and change it. It's not up to the journalist to ignore bad things or unfortunate things or challenging situations so that we can make each other feel better. I mean, still got the comics and the Capital Journal. You can go look at those and do the crossword. And I hope, seriously speaking, we all need to take time away from a lot of this challenging information that makes us anxious and nervous and scared. But what we can do in the media, particularly when you're not covering Congress and the White House and the really big issues, is tell people what's happening here, what is happening in Shawnee County, what's happening in Kansas. What do we need to know here, us in this conference and our neighbors and friends around us? What do we need to know to protect ourselves now? How can we help ourselves and how can we help each other? Which until a few weeks ago meant knocking on your neighbor's door to see if they need help. Maybe now it's sending an email to your neighbor's door and leaving groceries on a doorstep instead of taking them into that person's kitchen. So that's the kind of information that the press can provide and help other people with. But of course, there are a lot of challenges to getting that out because we're faced with some information that just is not terribly reliable. So this is a site I just came across this morning. It's from Pointer, which is a nonprofit news It started out as like a think tank for journalists, where journalists went to get training. It's in St. Petersburg, Florida. And so this is just an example of what they're doing to try to break through the disinformation, misinformation that's coming out. So this is one post about a false lockdown and referring to something on, I hadn't seen this, but supposedly President Trump's going to put the country on mandatory quarantine. Well, it was fake. He wasn't ever going to do that, or at least there's no fact to back this up, but it went around on texts, I guess, in this case. And that once people get this idea in their heads, they are concerned that it's really true, and trying to convince them otherwise is a bigger stretch than it was to convince them that it was a possibility. And this site is it's pointer.org, and it's the Coronavirus Facts Alliance. Another one is, this is on YouTube, it's 13 minutes, I'm not going to play it, but this is see here, the Teen Fact Checking Network. Our teens are fact checking about the coronavirus. I'll tell you one interesting thing I'm saying with news in general these days is young people, certainly under 20, under 25, maybe to some degree under 30, feel that the news, the way that you and I think of it, doesn't speak to them. And so they want to have news that maybe speaks literally their language and their jargon and the style of communication they have, but also without some of the fancy backgrounds and so forth that we think of as the slick programming of the evening news, and just does it in the style of kids sharing videos, whether it's this case where they are high school and younger, or maybe even in their 20s. So this is what teenagers are trying to do, sponsored down here by MediaWise. And just think about information that we're trying to share. I had a student ask in class, was showing, I hope you know the Johns Hopkins coronavirus dashboard. And if you haven't seen it, you just type those words into your search engine, Johns Hopkins coronavirus dashboard. And you'll see their stats, which they update, it seems like even throughout the day, what's happening across the world and locally. So what kind of model is there? What predictions are there? And I don't know of any myself, and I'm sure what I do know is that scientists are still trying to predict this. So I did show this map. This is from the Times, and it's, depending how your windows are set up, I've got to move mine out of the way here. Just this is an animation that goes only through March the 20th. But let me start it here. And you're going to see that as the states become yellow, that means there's a case. You'll see red dots for the number of cases. We're going through the beginning of March now. I'm going to stop it here about a week out and watch how these red circles grow in this last week. Which to me is sort of like watching some sci-fi dystopian universe happening in a movie. This is growing very quickly at the end. And again, note that stopped, 2 weeks ago now. So that's an indication of how serious this might be. And then just today, this is about traveling. If you've watched some of the information that's coming out, where does this data come from that people know about us? Well, because of our cell phones, we are tracked all the time in so many ways. So what they just figured out was where are people, sorry, I've got to readjust my screen, where people were still traveling for the week of March the 23rd. So I looked in here, somewhere around here, I think there it is, that's Shawnee County where my arrow is. And we're that in the middle orange color. So how much have people cut back on their travel? And see out here in the West, where you got to travel just to get to the grocery store, there's still a lot of travel. The gray areas up in the Northeast, upper Midwest, where there were, with the lines on it, so there were stay-at-home orders already in place at this time. So if you look on here, even around the Kansas City area has those stay-at-home orders. And then if we go to this chart, this is when did the average distance travel first fall below 2 miles from your home. So the darkest green was the earliest, and then it hasn't happened yet, or had not, by the 26th in many parts of the South. So I should think of those as ways not to say, here's what's going to happen, because I'm not a scientist in public health by any sense, but it suggests, you look at this kind of information, where these challenges may come up next. So these are examples of taking data from the government, or I think some of this is from a private business, and presenting in a way that the public can understand pretty quickly what's going on now and where some of our challenges may be in the future. So I think I'll stop there, and I'll ask if you have any questions, or I guess you can put those in the chat window, or if someone wants to turn on mics, we can hear you as well.
Anything right now? 30 seconds I need to know? Okay. Let's catch up.
This is Terry Hobbs calling.
Hi, Terry.
Hi. Thank you for that update.
Okay.
I got in late, a little late, so I apologize. Are you recording this?
I am. I've recorded it, Terry.
Oh, great. So you'll send us a link afterward.
Yes. I will figure out where I can put it. I'll put it onto YouTube. But Dave Heineman, I think, is also filming it.
Okay. Thank you. Hi, Jeanette.
Hi. Steve, this is Joni. And I appreciate you sharing with us what the resources are and what you can trust and not trust. But I'm fascinated by the daily press conference with the president and the conflictual information from one day to the next, and him challenging journalists regarding their accuracy or the smartness of their question, and others saying, but this is where you can find the documentation. And even prior to this pandemic, we were having real challenges regarding fake news. And where and how can we be assured that what we're getting is accurate?
So yeah, just a couple of questions, they're good ones, Joni. So the challenge of fake news, to me, fake news it's a misnomer and it's a distraction. It's just news. If it's to be called news, it's based on actual information. Now, that actual information can mean just any politician saying, here's my new tax plan, and it is the best tax plan ever. Now, if the reporter says, the politician said, quote, this is my new tax plan, and it's the best tax plan ever, end quote, that doesn't mean the reporter believes it's the best tax plan ever. It means the reporter believes that's what the person said. So that's one thing you have to think about. Just because it's been reported doesn't mean that we believe that everything we report is absolutely true. And the base at the bottom, it means that we know that, in this case, the politician said so. Fake news, I think the better term would be propaganda or disinformation. That's people who are trying to deceive you. Fake news has become really popular because the president popularized it, and so I can beg to have another minute of your time. I've got this video. This is from Leslie Stahl a couple of years ago. National Press Club.
My boss and him, he has a huge office, and he's attacking the press. And there were no cameras, there was nothing going on. And I said, that is getting tired. Why are you doing this? You're doing it over and over, and it's boring, and it's time to end that. You've won the nomination, and why do you keep hammering at this? And he said, you know why I do it? I do it to discredit you all and demean you all, so when you write negative stories about me, no one will believe you.
So we're thinking of fake news. I would suggest first consider the motive of the person using that term. I think you'd be surprised, or maybe you won't be surprised, you find out how many times a particular report is called fake news, and then a week or a month or 6 months later turns out it was absolutely true, even at the time it was accused to be fake news. So Journey's second question, how can you be sure you're getting good information? I would say go to a source, one that you believe is reliable. Go to a source that makes its reputation based on sharing accurate information. Any of us can tweet anything we like on Twitter, post anything we like on Facebook, but we don't make a living posting on Facebook or tweeting things out. So go to an organization, a source that you believe to be credible. And Allison's asked about what can we consider to be a healthy amount of news a day. I've spent years and years and years consuming as much news as possible and still feeling I don't get enough. I've had to just turn off whatever that news is or take my mind away from it myself. I've heard that if you're not in the news profession, twice a day is good. If you set 45 minutes in the morning, 45 minutes in the evening, I'm just throwing that number out. But instead of constantly updating, we've all got these things that we're looking at, and the reason those little updates come in red dots is because red attracts our eyes. So it's meant to keep us looking at it, but just carve away as much time as you can not to look at it, I suppose. Morning, evening, afternoon.
Are there any other questions?
The interesting graphics you had from New York Times, are they updated on a periodic basis? And are they available to anyone, or do you have to have a New York Times subscription?
As far as updating, the first one I showed you with the bubbles, that hasn't been. That was posted, I think, on March 21, because the last day is March 20, and I keep hoping they'll update that particular one, but they have not. The other two I showed you just went up today, so that's as fresh as the information is. I think the actual data comes from the end of last week. I have a subscription, so I don't know when I'm be hitting a paywall or not, but they have said many times that the coronavirus coverage is not behind their paywall. And in fact, those maps are on the homepage. I just found them a few hours ago, so they're probably still toward the top of the homepage.
Thank you.
Hey, Steve, it's Roger Ashelman. Good afternoon to you. Thanks for being here.
Hi, Roger.
All right. We had a very long lag, so I'll just talk a little bit. I have millennial children. They are absolutely lost in the swamp of too much information all the time. And I've really harangued them, just turn it off. Just turn it off and unplug. Nobody's making you do it. And then for everybody, I'll do a quick financial advisor thought. Don't look at the stock returns anymore. If you truly can't stand that you're going to lose 20 or 30 or 40%, you're not invested the right way, and you need to dial your risk down. So if you can't stand it, it's driving you crazy, either turn it off and accept you'll get your growth back someday, or get out and go into low risk stuff and be happy getting low returns forever. But either way, turn it off.
Yeah, there's certainly something to that. Turning it off, stepping away. I think, again, this idea that if newspapers had been invented 6 months ago, what would it be like to get your information from something that doesn't blink at you, doesn't have 16 different, all your tabs you've got, constant refreshings and comments you can look at. It's just, there it is, ink on paper. You can read it as slowly as you like, as quickly as you like, page through it, but it's not bombarding you. I think, when you're even reading a book, you don't feel like you have to do anything you don't want to with turning the page or going to the next paragraph. And that's such a different feeling from consuming your news primarily through social media, which I think is what a lot of younger people do. And one reason I'm convinced I will never become a primary consumer of news on social media is what I hear from the students who do so, and they're overwhelmed, and honestly, I think they're sometimes a few days behind in the news because they don't see the news through the forest of all that stuff on their social media feeds.
I think Terry had a message, in the chat thing.
Why do reporters use anonymous sources? Yeah, so that's a criticism Trump often shares, and other people do, and sometimes they're very legitimate criticisms. But a source who's highly placed says XYZ. Well, can you believe that? Well, first thing, the source is not anonymous to the reporter, and sometimes the source is not anonymous to the reporter's editor or producer. The reporter knows exactly who they're talking to. The reasons vary. So one way that'd be different from this current kind of stuff would be a reporter who does a piece on domestic violence and wants to interview, say, women who have escaped from their husbands and are in another town or another state. And certainly if their name were published on the internet, it'd be very easy to find out where they're living now. And the abusive husband could track them down and commit more abuse. So there are reasons like that. Other reasons are completely on the other end. Well, the White House, even the current White House, has rules in place about when top officials will go on the record and when they will not. So the president's being a little disingenuous when he says you can't trust anonymous sources because some of those are his appointees. It's known, and you can look these sorts of things up, that if the White House wants to get information out, sometimes it's not going to be the deputy assistant someone. It's going to be an administration official. A reason for that could be that deputy official doesn't want to get ahead of the president. Whoever the president is, the president gets to be the White House, and then these other officials who share some information a little bit at a time, either to fill things in that the president said or didn't quite fully say because there wasn't enough time. And so they go on background or off, probably not off the record. In journalism, that means it's like the priest. I hear it, but I can't do anything about it. It's from your lips to my ears, and it's gone. So it's on background in some way. Another reason would be to try to find out information from those who don't intend to share it. So if you're the deputy assistant to the president who is authorized to share information, but as long as your name's not there because you work for the big guy, well, other people want to get information, like a proto whistleblower. And the only way they can do that without getting fired is to do so without having their name shared. And in that kind of case, a reporter first knows who the source is. And any decent reporter who's been doing it more than even a year knows that just because that guy over there is telling me something nasty about this person or this business doesn't mean the first guy is right. And maybe there's a grudge. Maybe that person is just making things up or perceives things in a way that's totally askew to reality. So a good reporter doesn't just rely on one source, no matter who the source is. That reporter is going to try to vet that source, get some other data to show that what the first guy, the whistleblower person, said may be accurate. And then the reporter will try to get in touch with the person who's being criticized, to give that person a chance to respond. And that can shape the direction of the reporting as well, or maybe stop it from being published. So it's a way to get information out that we couldn't get out otherwise. And it doesn't mean that people who are anonymous are always accurate any more than it means the people who are constantly on the record are always accurate either.
Steve, I have a question for you. This is Vince Fry. I love your background there. Spent a lot of time there getting my degree. What are you hearing from your former associates in New York as to how they're dealing with covering the crisis?
I'm not in touch with them now. I think they've got plenty to deal with on their own. They're working from home. In fact, some of them have been. I don't know myself of any who have been affected with it. I know they've been in places where other people have been infected, and so they start being quarantined, and then who are you in touch with? And it becomes rings and rings of people working in different places. But it's the sort of continuing story that sort of drives journalism, because how many different things are going on here? You've got, there, I'm touching my face, right? You've got, just the health issue of so many people getting infected and sick and dying. You've got issues of the response from governments, from private business, from private hospitals to suppliers of these medical devices. You've got then how much trillions of dollars that are going to be spent across the economy to get things going again. And, 100 billion here, 100 billion there, and you're talking about money, some of which is not going to be spent appropriately. So journalists will stand up to be watchdogs to see how the money is being spent and to try to track good spending and poor spending and bring those results to the public. So that's the sort of thing that's going to make them excited and want to keep getting up every day and try to find out what's going on. while trying to protect themselves too.
Well, thank you.
A comment that it's pretty fun to get to watch a mom, a proud mom, watch her kid.
Hi, Mom.
I love the pictures.
Well, normally, Steve, at this point, we would say thank you very much, and I'm sure that you'll stay if there are any other questions after the meeting, but I don't know how we do that on Zoom. So,
Yeah, and I've got another meeting in 10 minutes with a student, so I'm going to have to beg off.
okay, well, thank you once again, and we always enjoy having you come and speak and share with us your knowledge. I see a lot of thumbs up for you, besides your mom.
Great, well, that's good. And thanks for having me come by. Remember, wash your hands for 20 seconds and get a lot of sleep. Bye-bye.
Bye, Steve. Thank you. Well, we have another agenda item for us, and that is what I'm referring to as service before self. That during this just amazing, unusual time, and many of us are trying to stay safe and are staying in our homes. However, there are many in our community who are in need and are needing assistance, especially as regarding food. So I've asked Jeanette, who is our chair of community service, to share with us two projects, community service projects, that I'm hoping you all will participate in. Jeanette?
Thank you, Joni. Well, what better time than during this crisis for us Rotarians to live out that motto, service above self. Today, as Jim said, I'm going to talk about two organizations that are in need. One is Meals on Wheels. The opportunities that they have to volunteer can be one time a week, 2 times a week, once a month, kind of whatever will fit into your schedule and what you're comfortable with. In a normal day, we are serving 1,000 meals in Johnny County, Douglas County, and Jefferson County. The gal I talked to this morning did not have any new numbers other than to tell me that the need of seniors who need these meals has increased dramatically. And so what we're going to be doing is either through Facebook or Club Runner, we're going to let you know how to get a hold of Meals on Wheels if you're interested in volunteering. When they respond to you, there will be an application and then also a one-pager that is their training that they're doing now online. Once you submit those items, they will set up a time to call you, and you'll talk to them for 15 minutes to complete your training. They'll assign you a route, and then you will be ready to go. And the second organization I can talk about intimately, and that is Harvesters. Again, the need has risen dramatically, and I know you can imagine that. Last Monday, Harvesters had the largest food ordering processing day that they've had in their 40-year history. As you know, when people help Harvesters, you're helping 760 partner agencies that either have a brick and mortar pantry or they have volunteers that they've recruited to help at the mobile food distributions. So you're helping all of them get that food out to those who need it. The mobile food distributions are an ideal model at this time because they minimize person-to-person contact, allowing volunteers to put the food into those who need its vehicles, and again, limiting that person-to-person contact. We are an essential provider, just as Meals on Wheels, so we are there to provide nutritious food to anyone who needs it. Families and seniors are turning to those pantries and mobile food distributions. We got a count last week. It looks like our numbers were up 40%.
We've got adults who are out of work. We all know people in that situation. We have parents that are missing work because they're having to care for their children right now who are out of school. So in addition to that, we've got thousands who applied for unemployment benefits last week, and all of the figures show that that's going to continue to incline for a while. So I invite you to take a look at Harvester's website for two reasons. One, you're going to go there and you're going to find an agency partnership. You're going to be able to identify where people can go and get food. So as you know, people in need, don't hesitate to send them to those brick and mortar pantries or to those mobile food distributions. And the second reason is there is a COVID-19 fund. If you have a few extra dollars, I would encourage you to go to that site and donate. 3 weeks ago, we historically said $1 provided 3 meals, and now, today, 3 weeks current, $1 provides 1 meal. So even $10 is going to provide 10 meals to someone in our community. That's all I got, Joni.
And if I can help get an email out, just let me know to people. I can do an email. Some of the other stuff I can't do, but that I can do. Okay. Some of our youth exchange students that we had overseas are back, and some that who were overseas and visiting us have gone home. But we do have 2 youth exchange students who are in our Zoom today, and I'm thrilled to see you, Josie. And I do promise you an Italian meal once we can be face to face. It's great having you. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
They are staying with David and Lynette Beck in Florence. So thank you, David, for hanging in there with that. I did want to just call to your attention, in case you haven't seen it, that we've had 2 members who recently lost loved ones. One is Robert Raft, whose mother passed away. She lives in Pennsylvania, I believe. And Grace Morrison, whose future son-in-law passed away earlier this week. In addition, we've had 2 members of our own club recently die, and normally we have memorial services for them, but we have decided to wait until we can have real face-to-face service for them and include their families in that. My husband just walked in to distract me.
No, go ahead. Sorry.
With that, we will meet again next week at Zoom, and I hope that if you're not enjoying your meal, that then you can file a complaint and bring your own. You can do that. And with that, our next program for next week is Matt Pavarnik, who is president of the Topeka Chamber of Commerce, and he's going to share with us what the business community is doing to help support businesses and employment during this time. So we'll look forward to hearing from Matt. And we thank Marie. She's had to make a few adjustments with the programs and is doing a yeoman's job. So thank you, Marie, with that. And so with that, shall we end with the 4-way test?
Yes.
Is it unmute?
Oh, great. Okay.
Okay. Is it the truth?
Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill?
Better friendship.
Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
And will it be fun? And with that, I'm going to end. I think I'm going to end with.
Thanks, Joni. Thank you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Good job.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you all for letting me visit.
Bye. Bye-bye. Bye, all. We miss you. We miss you all.
Indeed.
Yes. Hi. Hi, Annette. We need to have a cocktail cocktail hour. Zoom. I hear they're doing that. How about
Good
some Zoom
idea.
cocktail hours?
Second the motion.
Mwah. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, dear.